after the eunuch Chrysaphius urged Edecon to kill Attila. Emperor Theodosius and the Magister Martialos decided, as they discussed the events, to dispatch as ambassadors to Attila not only Bigellus, but also Maximinos. They also decided that Bigellus, as a pretense, should keep occupying the translator's post, and should do whatever Edecon thought best, and Maximinos, since he knew nothing of their plans, should deliver the emperor's letter. With earnest entreaty, Maximinos persuaded me to accompany him on this embassy, and so, closely following the road alongside the barbarians, we reached Serdica, a 13 days' journey from Constantinople for a lightly armed man. There, as we settled into our quarters, we thought it would be a good idea to invite Edecon and his barbarian companions to a feast. We bought sheep and cows from the locals, slaughtered them, and made our meal. At the height of the banquet, when the barbarians were extolling Attila, and we the emperor, Bigellus said it was not right to juxtapose a god and a man, meaning by man Attila, and by god Theodosius. The Huns were agitated, and, their temperatures rising little by little, grew angry. We turned the conversation to other topics, and appeased their anger with friendliness. Arriving later at Naissus, we found the city bereft of people because it had been overturned by the enemy, though there were some people in the sacred lodgings who were suffering from diseases. We camped a little bit upriver in a clearing, since the bank was everywhere covered with the bones of war casualties. After passing the night, we traveled from the region of Naissus to the Istros River. After we crossed the Istros and traveled about 70 stays with the barbarians, we were forced to wait on the plain so that Edecon's men could inform Attila of our arrival. The barbarians stayed with us and acted as our guides. As we were taking our dinner in the late afternoon, we heard the rumble of horses coming toward us. 2 Scythian men arrived and ordered us to go on to Attila. First, though, we asked them to join us for dinner. They dismounted and we sumptuously entertained them. On the next day, they led us along the road. Around the 9th hour of the day, we reached Attila's tents, and there were many tents there. We wanted to pitch ours on the crest of a hill, but the barbarians who met us prevented it, since Attila's tent was on lower ground. Once we settled down where the Scythians wanted, Edecon, Orestes, Skotos, and some other select men came and asked what our embassy was eager to procure. We expressed our confusion at the senseless question, and kept looking at one another, but they continued to trouble us for an answer. When we said that the emperor bade us to speak to Attila and to no one else, Skotos replied angrily that their order was from their leader. They would have not come to us out of their own desire to meddle. We said that it was not customary for ambassadors to be questioned by intermediaries about why they had come, without their meeting nor even seeing the parties to whom they had been sent. This, we said, was not unknown even to the Scythians, who often sent ambassadors to the emperor. It was necessary that we receive identical treatment, otherwise we would not disclose the embassy's purpose. So we spoke, and they withdrew to Attila. Again they returned, though without Edecon, repeated to us all the reasons for which we had come on the embassy, and ordered us to go away by the quickest route possible, unless we could name anything else. We were still more mystified by these words, since it was not easy to see how decisions made by the emperor in secret had become clearly known. We believed that it was to our benefit to answer nothing further about the embassy, unless we gained access to Attila. So we said it was their leader who asked whether we came to negotiate the things listed by the Scythians or other matters too. We would not discuss it with anyone other than him. They immediately ordered us to leave. We had already loaded our baggage onto the pack animals and were attempting, out of necessity at nighttime, to begin our journey, when some of the barbarians came and said Attila told us to remain because of the late hour. To the place from which we were getting ready to set out, some men brought us a cow and some river-caught fish sent by Attila. Then, after dining, we turned to sleep. When day came, we thought that the barbarians would reveal some kind, pleasant news. Once again, however, he sent the same men, advising us to go away unless we had something to say beyond what they already knew. We said no, and began preparing for the journey, although Bigellus vehemently argued that we should say that we had more to say. Seeing Maximinus very dejected, I went out with Rusticius, since he knew the barbarians' language fluently. He had come with us to Scythia, not on the embassy, but for some business with Constantinus, Attila's Italian secretary, whom Aetius, the Western Roman general, had sent. I came to Skotos. Onegesius was not present at the time, and addressing him through the translator Rusticius, I said that he would receive numerous gifts from Maximinus if he helped him get access to Attila. The embassy, I said, would benefit not only the Romans and Huns, but also Onegesius, since the emperor wanted him to come and mediate the nation's differences, and he would receive magnificent gifts when he went. Since Onegesius was away, I said, he needed to support us, and Mor, his brother, in pursuit of this good business. I said we knew Attila followed his guidance too, but we would not firmly believe the reports about him unless we came to know his power through experience. He replied that no one any longer doubted Attila deemed his words and deeds equal to his brother's. He immediately mounted his horse and rode to Attila's tent. I returned to Maximinus, who, with Bigellus, was perplexed and at a loss regarding the recent events. I repeated what I said to Skotos, and what I heard from him, and said that we needed to prepare gifts for the barbarian, and to calculate what we would say to him. Both of them leapt up, they happened to be lying in the grass, praised my actions, and called back those who had already departed with the pack animals. They considered how to address Attila, and how to give the emperor's gifts as well as what Maximinus had brought for him. As we were worrying about these things, Attila summoned us through Skotos. And so at last we came to Attila's tent, which was guarded by a barbarian multitude, arrayed in a circle. When we reached the entrance, we found Attila seated on a wooden chair. Maximinus approached, as the rest of us stood a short distance from the seat, and he greeted the barbarian. Giving him the emperor's letter, he said that the emperor prayed that he and those around him were safe. Attila replied that the Romans would have what they desired for him. He turned his attention straight to Bigellus, called him a shameless beast, and asked why he wanted to come to him, considering that he knew his and Anatolius's peacetime agreement that no ambassadors should come to him until all fugitives had been surrendered to the barbarians. Bigellus said that there was not a single Scythian fugitive among the Romans. Those who had been there had been surrendered. Growing angrier and reviling him all the more, Attila shouted that he would have crucified him and given him as food to the birds if he did not think inflicting this penalty on his shamelessness and on the effrontery of his words would violate sacred diplomatic law. There were, he said, fugitives of their race among the Romans, many of them whose names, which had been recorded on papyrus, he ordered the secretaries to read out. When they had gone through all the absent men, he ordered Bigellus to depart without a moment's delay. He would send Eslas with him too, he said, to tell the Romans that they should send him all the barbarian fugitives, from the time of Carpilion, the son of Aetius, the Western Roman general, who had lived as a hostage at his court. He would not allow his own subjects to fight against him, although they were incapable of helping anyone who trusted them to protect his land. What city, he asked, or what fortress had they saved, once he himself had begun a siege? He told us to return again, after we had repeated his demands about the fugitives, and say whether the Romans wanted to surrender them or undertake a war on their behalf. He had earlier told Maximinus to stay, so that he might reply to the emperor's letter through him, and so he permitted us to present the gifts Maximinus was carrying, and to withdraw. We presented the gifts and retired into our tent, where we reviewed what had been said. Bigellus was amazed how Attila angrily reviled him, even though he seemed gentle and kind to him on his previous embassy. I expressed fear that some of the barbarians who had feasted with us at Serdica had made Attila hostile to him by reporting that he called the Roman emperor a god, but Attila a man. Maximinus thought that this was right, since he was not a partner in the eunuch's conspiracy against the barbarian. Bigellus was doubtful, and seemed to me at a loss to explain why Attila had reviled him. He thought, as he later told us, that neither the events in Serdica nor the details of the plot had been reported to Attila because, on the one hand, no one else from the group he thought was bold enough to speak with Attila due to the fear that governed them all. On the other hand, Ede Heinrich, he thought, would keep his silence completely because of the oaths and the uncertainty of the deed, and feared that he himself too, since he was a participant in such plans, would lose his favorite status and suffer death as a punishment.